because different waters are produced in different ways, and the conditions of production will need to be ones that favor the formation of hydrogen.
All right. No objection.
No.
Okay.
Now the question is, will I remember the answer?
All rise.
Yeah.
Article 16 is now in session. Honorable Timothy Williams, presiding. Please be seated.
And thank you, Tim. And good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's go ahead and set forth our appearances through the record.
Will Kemp, Theodore Parker, Plaintiffs.
Good morning, Your Honor. Joel Odou, on behalf of Will Orion, and the lifestyles.com and the Milwaukee Instruments.
Morning, Your Honor. Scott Rasmussen, my friend and Hanna Hanna Instruments. Representatives of my Rob Robbins from Milwaukee Instruments.
All right, once again, good morning. And do we have anything we need to take care of outside the presence?
Just one thing, Your Honor. Hopefully no one will oppose this. You know, I have a telephone conference with a public body I represent, one different than the other one I had 2 weeks ago. That starts at 12. If we could be here at 11:55 for lunch, I would appreciate it. That's
No
all.
objection.
We'll leave at 11:45, so.
Oh, that's easy. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so I guess continuing on, please
Oh,
remind,
I'm sorry,
Mr.
Your Honor.
Parker, please remind us in case, cue me. All
I
right,
will, Your Honor. Thank you so much for the portion, Bill.
Mr. Pepperman.
Yes, Your Honor. First, Ms. Mercer advised that we needed to file a list of the exhibits that were pre-admitted pursuant to motions in limine. That list is being filed right now. For the record, the pre-admitted exhibits that were admitted pursuant to motions in limine are plaintiff's exhibit number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. And those exhibits will also be included in the list that is being filed right now. In addition, the first witness this morning is going to be plaintiff's expert, Dr. Najm, and I sent defendants a list of the exhibits that we may use with Dr. Najm, and it's my understanding we have stipulations to admit at least several of them. The first one is plaintiff's exhibit 439. That's the 2006 study by Dr. Najm on formation of hydrazine as a chloramine byproduct. Am I correct to say that's stipulated?
Agreed.
The next is exhibit 40, which is Dr. Najm's 2011 study regarding quantifying hydrazine in chloraminated water.
Agreed.
Next is a new exhibit, which wasn't on the list. It's exhibit 787, and it's a figure of the description of the real water production process. And this was used in opening statements by both plaintiffs and Hanna.
Thanks. Yeah, we agree. We just, the only objection would be if Dr. Najm might be on the scope of his report.
The next exhibit are several pictures that are on plaintiff's exhibit list. Plaintiff's exhibit 351, 332, 341, 342, 339, 346, 347, 343, 344, 345, 353, 356, 357.
The only issue again is, Dr. Najm needs to stay within the scope of his opinion and report. As far as Exhibit 341, the gas mask, I don't believe you rendered any opinions on gas masks. Or gloves for that matter, Exhibit 342.
Who we joining the objection?
So no stipulations on those two?
No, we'll stipulate the others.
Well, let's see what they are when they, before they're, as they're being offered, we'll look at them.
Yeah, and if he's gonna stay within the context of the report, we'll have to reconsider it, but we'd have to see what he's gonna say.
Yeah.
So
341 and 342, right now, we're not stipulating to.
you stipulate to the rest.
No,
Oh,
no. I
sorry.
think we're saying we'd like to see them, as what he's saying about them before they're actually provided to the jury. We don't know what he's gonna say about them. We probably will, Eric, but I don't know what he's saying yet.
Well, they're pictures that were produced. You have an objection to them being admissible as an exhibit.
I don't know yet.
Okay,
Does that objection also include 787?
No, 787.
We're fine.
Your Honor, maybe we could have a few minutes to discuss the exhibits because I think it would just save a lot of time.
What are they?
They're just pictures.
Pull them up.
Which one do you want, Eric?
Start with exhibit 332.
No objection.
Um, 339.
No objection. No objection.
343.
No objection.
No objection.
344.
No objection.
Objection.
There's an objection?
I don't even know, who is this person? I don't know who it is. I don't know
Okay,
what they're
all
looking
right, I get it. So assuming there's a foundation laid, when is taken at the facility or what? Do we know?
I don't, I wasn't there.
On it. Looks like March 2021.
This is the Southern Nevada Health District photo.
Yeah, I don't know who this is.
Was it objected to during the course of discovery pursuant to 16.9 once the disclosure was made?
Those were reserved by the case management.
It's fine. We don't need, we can,
Okay, let's move on.
345.
No objection from the water.
Oh, thank you, Shane.
Any thoughts?
Eric, can I just ask a question? I don't remember this in his report or his depots, I don't remember the discussion about the photos. Is this to just explain that diagram, like show a picture of the stuff that's in the diagram?
Yes.
Did I have no objection to this one?
Okay, 346.
No objection from the water.
No objection.
No objection.
347.
No objection from Will Water.
What is this supposed to be?
The charger.
The charger, right? This has nothing to do with anything else?
No, yeah, power supply.
That's what I thought, okay. I didn't want to see if there's something in here that had to do with the meter, and I don't think that I've got a part of it down here, that's what we're gonna focus on. I don't see parts of the meter, right?
Right.
Okay, just check it. No, I'm good with it.
Okay. 351.
No objection.
Yeah, no objection.
No objection.
353.
No objection from Will Water.
Eric, what is this supposed to be? I know what it is, but you tell me what you're gonna say.
Those are the cups on the side.
So there's the pH testing strip right here. Is he gonna talk about the pH?
He's talking about the manufacturing process, what they did.
Well, I see the bottle of pH here, right? I guess I have no objection to this.
356.
No objection.
No objection.
357.
No objection.
No objection. No, okay, no objection.
Um, okay, I believe that's it on the pictures.
Dr. 358.
Oh, 358? Oh, yes, 358.
No objection.
No objection.
Okay, and then, we would also propose stipulating to admit the titanium tubes into evidence and the metal rack.
Will Water agrees.
Those are exhibits 377, the titanium tubes, and 380, the metal rack.
No objection.
No objection.
Okay, Your Honor, I believe that's it. There's customer complaints, but those are not stipulated to.
All right, let's go through this, Tori, as far as what we stipulated to, so.
Pre-admitted 1 through 10, 439, 40, 787, 351, 332, 339, 346, 347, 343, 345, 353, 356, 357, 358, 373, and 380.
Is that correct, gentlemen?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
And, Your Honor, I apologize. Maybe
Mr. Robbins, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Shall be admitted.
if we could, Shane, if we can pull up the exhibit 341 and 342, the picture of the gas mask and picture of gloves. These are, there's no stipulation as to these?
There's no stipulation. These are outside his report. It's hard for us to know what he's going to do with them. I agree, it's a picture of the gas mask and gloves taken at some point in time.
No stipulation, Your Honor. Our objection is there's no foundation. I don't know that the doctor took these photographs. I don't know when he observed them. I don't know who took the photo.
Your Honor, this is very concerning to me because this gas mask and the gloves, these pictures were taken at the facility originally by the Southern Nevada Health District when they investigated in March 2021. When we were out there to inspect the facility in April, these items were missing and they're nowhere to be found. We went to get them this last week to bring the physical evidence from the property there, and they weren't there. So now they're saying they've removed this evidence from the facility, and now they're objecting to the admissibility of the Southern Nevada Health District photos of the evidence. Like, we don't know that this came from the facility. Something seems off with that.
We're going to object to being accused of taking these items. I've never had control over the facility.
I'm not concerned about the items. I'm concerned about, are these accurate depictions of items that were at the facility? That's all I want to know.
I've never seen those at the facility, Your Honor.
No, I mean, well, you weren't there when the Southern Nevada Health District conducted their inspection, right?
You're right, we had not been sued, but I have been to the facility, Your Honor, yes.
But no, but were these taken by the Southern Nevada?
I don't
Yes,
know.
they were, Your Honor. The photos are legitimate. Our concern is this witness never commented upon them.
That's my objection.
Agreed.
Okay.
But the photos are legitimate. I have no objection to that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I do. Sir.
Well, in terms of commenting upon them, Dr. Najm in his report explained the real water manufacturing process. These were used as part of the manufacturing process. His testimony today is going to overview the manufacturing process, and we're going to show these pictures as part of that process because this is what the protective gear they were wearing when they manufactured the E2 concentrate. He's not offering any opinions on them. He is just explaining that they were worn as part of the process.
What's the response to that? Because I have a couple of comments once we're done.
Again, if there's something, that he really wanted to comment upon, it should have been in the scope of the report. He's going to now testify that this is a dangerous chemical and they had to wear a gas mask and blood. Where was that in the report? And I'm concerned about the prejudicial effect of whatever he's going to say in response to these. He's going to, comment that this is how the process is made and stop there. That's one thing. But he's going to add new opinions we haven't had notice of them.
Join in that argument.
Sure.
Sir.
Your Honor, he's going to testify as to the chemicals they were using in the process and the protective gear that they were wearing as an overview of the process. Those are simple facts. If Mr. Odou wants to cross-examine Dr. Najm and suggest that these protective items weren't part of the manufacturing process, weren't necessary, or the chemicals didn't require them, then he's free to do that. But it has nothing to do with the admissibility of genuine, authentic photographs of protective equipment that Blaine Jones testified he was wearing while he made the concentrate as part of the manufacturing process.
What's the comment on that? Because here's the thing, and I don't want us to get lost in what's really important and other tangential issues as it pertains to expert reports. Because when we talk about expert reports, when we're concerned about opinions, we're concerned about new standard of care opinions, potentially regarding liability, or maybe new causation opinions that were never set forth in the report. If this is as part of the manufacturing process and as uncontroverted that it is, and the pictures were taken by the Southern Nevada Health District, I don't see what the deal is. I really don't. Right? Because he's not giving any new standard of care opinions, right? He's not giving any new causation opinions, right?
No, Your Honor.
Hopefully.
But you know where I'm going on it.
Thank you, Your Honor, and we appreciate the court's position. I think ours is.
No, I never have a position. I always have to say that. I never have a position. I'm just set forth what the rules require, because at the end of the day, for example, if hypothetically he had a new liability opinion, of course that doesn't come in. He'd be limited to his liability opinions as it's contained in his report, right?
Right, Your Honor, I apologize, I misspoke.
Yeah.
I was not trying to put words in the court's mouth.
No, that happens all the time. Trust me, Mr. Odou does, and I realize you didn't mean that in any way, I get
Yeah,
that.
there
But I
was
always,
not-
I always say that on the record because I never have positions, I'm just commenting on what the law mandates. And when we talk about new opinions, typically we're talking about new liability theories, potentially. We're talking about new causation theories, potentially, right? And if this is this tangentially part of the production process, and it's true, I don't see what the real issue is there.
Your Honor, the court is correct in the analysis, and Real Water agrees with that analysis. The issue is Real Water's already admitted liability, and it seems to be something that is just designed to inflame the jury as to look at these dangerous chemicals, look, they had to wear a gas mask, they had to wear gloves. That's outside the scope of his opinions, and if that's where the examination goes, it would be improper.
I understand. One way to put it.
I would just add, Your Honor, that he was asked to look at the production process, that's true, but this was not included as part of his production process. So to that extent, I think it's an amendment. He only had 3 areas that he was looking at, that was number 1. So I think it's an amendment to that opinion somehow, or I guess I won't know until I hear it, but that's my concern.
Here's my next question, because I don't have his report, but does he talk about the utilization of specific chemicals in the production process?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I mean, I would anticipate, and I don't know this for sure, but in light of looking at the photographs, if part of the production process, the workers were required, for example, to wear rubber gloves, why wouldn't that come in?
I don't know that he has a foundation to even say that, Your Honor. He'd never observed the process, obviously.
He reviewed these pictures. He reviewed Blaine Jones' deposition. Blaine Jones testified that he wore these items when he made the concentration.
If he did that, he never commented in his deposition about this or in the report on the production process about it. So if it was crucial, it should have been in the report. Your Honor.
But I don't think it's crucial. I think it's just part of the process.
Several pages of his report covers my understanding of the real water production methodology based on Blaine Jones' deposition, John Marlowe's deposition. He cites them both. He goes step by step. He doesn't go so far into granular detail to describe the clamp that they were using or the power supply source by brand name or, the protective equipment that's gas mask and gloves, but this is all covered in his expert report. And it's true, like your Honor observed, these were Southern Nevada Health District photos taken during the inspection. They're no longer there for us to admit into evidence. And Blaine Jones testified about using these materials. John Marlowe testified about the production process. And it's just an illustrative example of.
Well, it's not illustrative. It's actually the equipment they were utilizing during the production process. That's a different issue, right?
Right.
It's not like they went out and the expert bought, well, these potentially are the types of gloves that were being utilized by Real Water in the production process. That's not what this is. It's not illustrative. This is the actual pictures of gloves taken at the facility. That's an actual gas mask taken at the facility. If he goes through the production process and he talks about it in his report, notwithstanding the fact that he didn't specifically say, well, they were required to utilize a hazmat type protective wear during the production, I don't see where that's an issue, assuming these are the correct items. And he talks about it, and he reviews the deposition. And these are the real pictures, right?
Correct, John.
I'm not saying this should be emphasized, but the process is the process. And I don't know anything about the chemistry involved here because we haven't gotten there yet, but I would anticipate the types of chemicals that were utilized would require some sort of protective wear. Or there'd be all sorts of problems. There were work comp, the state, and all. all sorts of things. So as far as the two photographs are concerned, I don't admit that because, I mean, they are what they are. And I don't see if it, and here's the thing, and this is important to point out, and I've said this before. All evidence is prejudicial on some level to one of the parties. The question is whether it's unduly prejudicial, right? That's the first component I have to look at, and this is part of the process. Anything else?
And Sharon, just quickly, I know that it was mentioned that these were no longer found at the site. I don't know anything about that as my client for Hanna, so if the testimony or something, if part of the question comes in, they're missing at the facility, I'm not in control of that. I think that could be prejudicial to my client, and I don't want anything like that being said that.
I understand what you're saying, I get it.
No issue there, Your Honor, no, that will not be brought
Yeah,
up.
it's not gonna be like, I understand your concern, it would be like, not quite akin to spoliation, but I understand where you're going. And then, like, there was some nefarious conduct from somebody that took the, yeah. And just over time, they were missing. That's what happened, right? And we don't need to go there. I agree with you. Right? Got that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am. You're important because you're the gatekeeper of the evidence, ma'am. So go ahead.
So in the list that Mr. Pepperman gave me, it indicates that there are additional exhibits that are pre-admitted. May I go over those?
Yes, you may, ma'am. Just to make sure we got the record correct.
Exhibit 448.
Oh, I believe that is what we stipulated to admit in advance of Dr. Cossack's testimony on Friday.
450.
Same,
475.
same,
515.
same,
528.
same,
545.
same.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that, Tori. Could you say it one more time? 548, and then what was the next one?
It was 528,
Thank you, so sorry.
and then 545, and then 549,
Same,
550,
same,
555.
same.
Thank you.
All right. Are we done with preliminary matters?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, there's one other issue that I think would benefit just doing it now rather than in front of the jury. Proposed exhibit 106 is a customer complaint. They reference some insurance, not insurance of any of the parties. We have a concern about introducing any evidence of insurance before the jury, and I don't think we've reached a resolution on that one, so perhaps we could resolve that before going on the record, and then if there's an additional objection, it'll be very brief.
What exhibit number was that?
106.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a letter from an insurance company to Real Water about a customer complaint.
So, Your Honor, that it's not it doesn't implicate Real Water's insurance. It's an insurer of a store that received a customer complaint and is passing that customer complaint on to Real Water. I don't think that it implicates Real Water's insurance or improperly raises the spectrum of insurance, but we'd be willing to, it's not important to the customer complaint. All that's important is the complaint portion. So we'd be willing to redact it or come up with some other way to eliminate the reference to the insurance portion. And I can,
What you could do, you could meet with Mr. Odou and you can work that out.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Because it's not coming in now, is it?
I won't seek to introduce it now, no.
Okay, meet with, before it's introduced, I want you to meet with Mr. Odou and attempt to resolve it. If you can't, show it to me and I'll resolve it for you.
Thank you, Your
Thank you,
Honor.
Your Honor.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Robbins, anything further?
Nothing.
Mr. Rasmussen,
Nothing,
anything?
Your Honor. Thank you.
Exhibit 341 and 342 are now admitted.
Now it's over. All right, so we're ready for the jury, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's bring him in. Yes, Your Honor. of the jury, I want to say good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Right, well, I hope you enjoyed your weekend, and we're going to continue on with the trial. And it's my understanding the plaintiff will be calling this next witness, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, Dr. Issam Najm.
And Your Honor, right before Mr. Dr. Najm takes the stand, just for transparency purposes, on my way up from Department 20, I happened to get in the elevator with Ms. Yates. We went to our respective corners of the elevator. She was on one end, I was diametrically opposed on the other end. We didn't say anything, we didn't speak, and then we came up, so just in case.
And thank you, Mr. Plessy.
You're welcome.
So we're calling the next witness, is that correct?
Yes, Dr. Issam Najm.
Dr. Najm, please watch your step as you ascend. Please stand and face Madam Clerk and raise your right hand.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
May I have you state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Issam Najm, Issam Najm.
Thank you.
Please be cautious as you see that chair on wheels. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Pepperman, you may continue, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Najm. Can you please summarize your education and current employment for the jury?
I am an environmental engineer who's been working in environmental engineering for 33 years. I work primarily on water chemistry and water treatment. I hold a master's degree and a doctorate degree in environmental engineering from the University of Illinois. And I'm also an adjunct associate professor of environmental engineering at UCLA.
Do you have any experience related to the formation of the chemical hydrazine in water?
Yes, I do. I have conducted research on the formation of hydrazine in water over the last 16 years.
Has your research resulted in any published studies?
Yes, the work was funded by a research foundation in Denver. It's called the Water Research Foundation. And there were 2 research reports published from it. One is 2006 and another one in 2011. And they're all publicly available.
The 2006 study, what was the title?
It was called Formation of Hydrazine as a Chloramine Byproduct.
And for the record, that is Exhibit 439. And that exhibit has been admitted. What about the 2011 study?
The 2011 was a continuation of the research, and it was titled Quantifying Hydrazine in Chloraminated Water.
For the record, that's Exhibit 440, which has also been admitted. So Dr. Najm, these reports have been admitted into evidence, and they will be available to the jury to review should they like to look at them further. But can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury generally what those studies entail?
Yes. These studies looked at the possibility of hydrazine forming in drinking water under certain chemical conditions. And a lot of the work was about trying to quantify hydrazine at the levels we need to quantify in drinking water.
And Dr. Najm, what is hydrazine?
Hydrazine is an industrial chemical. It is a fairly simple chemical. It's got 2 nitrogens and 4 hydrogens on it. That's all it is. But it's a very significant chemical in the industry, especially in the defense industry, because hydrazine is what we call an energetic chemical. That means it can serve as a propellant or as a fuel for propelling rockets, spaceships, satellites, and it continues to be used as a propellant for satellite maneuvering.
Is hydrazine a toxic chemical?
Yes, there is plenty of information on the literature about hydrazine toxicity. It is quite toxic. It's a liver toxin at high concentrations, and it's also considered to be a probable human carcinogen at a low concentrations.
Let's talk about your work in this case. What were you asked to do?
Well, I understand that there were several cases of liver toxicity that were reported, and there was an investigation by the Nevada Department of Health, I believe, and the CDC and the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and that they measured significant levels of hydrazine in what is referred to as the concentrate in what they produce at the real water plant. And so I was contacted to talk about hydrogen, understand hydrogen chemistry because of my research in hydrogen chemistry.
And you were primarily asked to focus on 3 questions, is that right?
That is correct.
And Shane, what were those 3 questions?
Well, first, the question was, if you take a look at the information that we have about the production line, can we explain how hydrazine may have formed in this process? So that was the first question.
So you were asked to look at the real water manufacturing process and see if you could come up for an explanation of where and how the hydrazine was produced.
That is correct.
What was the second question you were asked?
Well, the second question was, if we look at the levels that the FDA measured at the time they analyzed the samples, would the samples, with the water at the time it was produced, could it have a higher concentration of what the FDA measured? So I looked at that loss of hydrazine from collection to analysis
In the concentrate.
in the concentrate.
And then what about the third question?
The third question was understanding the chemistry of hydrazine and the stability of hydrazine. If one tests the product water several months or years after it was produced from the production line, would you expect to find hydrazine there? And what would that mean?
Okay, so let's focus on the first question. How did you go about investigating the potential answers?
Well, the first thing I did is I received all the available information on the production of real water, any testimonies that have been given by employees of real water to try to understand, to draw the production line. How did real water get produced from start to finish to help me then answer these questions from there? And that's what I studied.
Can you tell the jury what you found?
Sure. May I go up to
Your Honor, may you approach the screen?
Any objection?
No objection.
Watch your steps.
Yes, thank you. I'm supposed to use. So this is, in general, the process, the production process of real water, as I understood it from the testimonies and the materials that I saw. And we can go through each one if you don't mind.
Okay, and for the record, the slide, the 4-step process you're referring to, that's also been admitted as an exhibit, exhibit number 787.
Okay.
Okay, so step 1 from the figure, where do we begin?
Yes, so if you'll allow me to walk through this. Step 1, the water used is tap water, and it goes through a filtration system. So this is a picture of the filtration system at the water facility. And the water gets added to this, a tank like this. It's 300 gallons of water. To it, 50 grams of potassium chloride as a salt is added to it to make this purified water, which is then pumped through these titanium tubes that we've heard about. Power is applied to those titanium tubes, and the water that goes in is split, a positive and a negative water. The positive water is thrown away, and it's the negative water that's collected in this other tank. So you start with 300 gallons, half of it is thrown away, and 150 gallons are left in this negative tank. And we're going to call this intermediate water, but these are the kind of tanks that are from the facilities that show this. So this was the purified water, as I understand it, and it went into another room where these tanks were used to begin this process.
Okay, so the tanks depicted in Exhibit 389, those are the 300-gallon tanks that are depicted in your figures in step 1. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So then you take this intermediate water, go to the next step. These tubes here are critical to this whole discussion. So these are photos of those tubes. And what you see here is a power meter, so you apply a charge to those tubes. This is the meter from the facility, and these are the cables that are used to connect the meter to the tubes or something like that.
How is the Exhibit 346 is the power supply used to apply voltage to the titanium tubes? Is that right?
Well, that is my understanding, and you can see these clamps, very much like a battery clamps that get attached to that power meter and apply the charge to the tubes.
Okay, so if you have this as step 1 and step 2,
Yes.
what happens in step 2?
Sure. So that water that first was generated, the intermediate water, then it's put back through the titanium tubes again. So they do a first charge on it, and then take it again, run it through the tubes again, and it splits again in half. One is positive, they throw that away, and the other one is basically a more negative water that is collected into this tank, and now this is 75 gallons, which is half what they started with. And this is what is referred to as negative water.
Shane, can we go back a couple slides to the holding tank? Okay, Dr. Najm, I just want to make sure we're clear on this for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. So the water is taken from the tap, from the water district, and run through the filtration process that we looked at, and then held in the holding tank that we see in picture Exhibit 356, right?
Correct. This is the filtered water.
Then that purified water is pumped through tubing in the facility to another room where they make the concentrate, and it's put into one of those 300-gallon tanks in
Correct.
Exhibit 339.
Correct.
Okay. And then from one of those tanks, they run them through the titanium tubes where they apply electricity from the power supply that we see in Exhibit 346, correct?
Correct.
And the power is applied with the clamps that we see in picture 347, similar to when you're jump starting a car battery.
Yes.
And then when the 300-gallon of water is run through this process and split in half, that leaves 150 gallons, correct?
Correct.
And that 150 gallons is routed into the second of the two concentrate holding tanks that we saw, right?
So, you want me to move to step 3?
Well, I just want to confirm that once the water's in 300 gallons in one tank, is run through the system, and it's taken down to 150 when the positive water is discharged, and then it's put into the second of the two tanks.
Can you please go back to the previous step 2? Okay. So those 2 tanks that we saw, these are tanks 1 and 2. Okay, so the water gets the water gets into from step 1 is in one tank, and they pump it back into the other tank through the titanium tubes to apply the charge and split the charges, positive water and negative water. So these are the 2 tanks where that picture is at. Yes.
Okay. And then they juice it a second time.
This is the second application of the power.
Okay, thank you.
And then this water, that is now called negative water, now goes to step 3. So here what they do is they take this tank, another one of these tanks, fill it up again with filtered tap water, and now we have this negative water that's highly charged. They only take 2.5 gallons of it and put it in this tank and mix it with it. Okay? And they make 300 gallons of this, what is referred to as the E2 concentrate. And in here, they add magnesium chloride. This is 120 grams of magnesium chloride. This is potassium bicarbonate. And this here is a caustic solution. This is potassium hydroxide. It's KOH is potassium hydroxide, and this is a caustic chemical. You can see it here, potassium hydroxide. And this is the caustic they put in here to get the water to an elevated pH that they want to get it to.
Now, Dr. Najm, during his opening statement, Mr. Odou suggested that real water was merely adding minerals to make its product, not chemicals or anything dangerous. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, magnesium is a mineral, chloride is a mineral, potassium is a mineral, so the end product in the water is minerals in the water. But especially potassium hydroxide, this is a caustic stock chemical that you buy. It is a hazardous chemical. It is, as shown here, it's a corrosive chemical. You know, you don't want that to get on your hands or any, metal. It'll eat through it. So it is a chemical very much in that sense.
And in Exhibit 341 and Exhibit 342, we see pictures of a gas mask and elbow-length yellow rubber gloves. Were these used as part of the concentrate manufacturing process?
Well, they should have been used because potassium hydroxide is a chemical you don't want to handle with your hands. So you need protective gear for it. It also produces fumes, so you got to be careful not to breathe it. It's just it's a hazardous chemical. You got to handle it carefully. So this is the kind of protective gear you would need to use to handle potassium hydroxide. So now we created the concentrate. Now you go to the production. So what happens there is, again, filtered water from tap water goes into a tank, 300 gallons. And according to the testimony that I reviewed, again, 2 to 2.5 gallons of that concentrate is put in this tank and mixed with the water to make the real water product. And then a potassium bicarbonate is added, as well as, again, some potassium hydroxide, because they had a target pH that they needed to get to. So if the pH is too low, they would add the hydroxide to bring the pH up to the target level. And this would be the final product that was put in bottles and containers and sent out.
And how did real water determine how much concentrate to add into the final product?
So the idea behind this product is that it had to have a certain negative charge to it. And that negative charge comes from the concentrate. So they had a target charge of negative 225 to negative 300 millivolts. And it's a thing you measure with what is referred to as an ORP probe and ORP meter. So they had that target range, and the water would be much higher than that normal water. So to create the negative charge, they would have to put more of that concentrate, the negative concentrate, to get the mixture up to the target level. So if they are outside that target level, they would add more to get to that target level of that negative charge range.
And what are we looking at on the pictures on the screen?
So the way to get to that charge, as I mentioned, you have to measure it with this meter. And so this is the kind of a sample tap. You open this valve, you fill one of these cups with it. And this is a little probe. You stick the probe in there and you get a reading on the screen. It tells you what many millivolts that is. And it has to be within the range that they're supposed to have it in.
And once they've added enough concentrate to reach the negative target range, according to the meter reading, what would they do next?
This is the water that was then put into the bottles and put into the containers and shipped out to customers.
Okay, Dr. Najm, thank you for explaining that process. Let's get back to our first question.
Well, I gotta do this.
After reviewing the manufacturing process and available materials, did you develop an opinion regarding how the hydrazine was formed in the E2 concentrate?
Yes, after reviewing the process drain and the information that I just discussed, it's my opinion that the most plausible explanation is that it took place in the electrolysis process, in those titanium tubes process where the water was sent 2 times through.
And is that opinion stated to a reasonable degree of scientific probability?
That is my professional opinion based on what I reviewed, yes.
And how could it have been formed in the tubes? How could the hydrazine have formed in the tubes?
Sure. So this is a bit of a schematic of what's happening inside that tube. So this is very much like a battery. You have a positive side and you have a negative side. So what happens is you apply that power across these 2 sides, and this turns very negative and this turns very positive, okay? And so what happens is, over here, this is hydrazine, N284. So one mechanism that I suspect caused the formation of hydrazine is that there's nitrogen gas. Nitrogen gas is in the atmosphere, the entire atmosphere is 79% nitrogen. So that nitrogen gas, with the applied power, it's plausible for it to generate hydrazine as a product. And the more power you apply to get it more negative, the more hydrazine you would produce out of that. There's another possibility, which is that ammonia was formed, which is also a nitrogen chemical from the nitrogen gas. One of the research works that I did is about how chlorine, which is bleach, and ammonia can generate hydrazine. And that is well documented. And so the chlorine is suspected to be generated on the positive side and is migrating over to the negative side to cause the formation of hydrazine. So in general, very much like an electric battery, you apply a charge, one turns very negative, which is where you want that negative water generated, and the other is positive. We throw away this water, and the negative water is the one that has all the negative chemicals like hydrazine and ammonia, and possibly also hydrogen gas. This is the gist of it.
Thank you for that explanation. Dr. Najm, let's look at the FDA test results measuring hydrazine. So on the screen, we have Exhibit 6, which is an FDA test result of one sample of the E2 concentrate measuring at 1.33 milligrams per milliliter. Is that a significant concentration of hydrazine?
That's a very significant concentration of hydrazine.
What is the date of this? When was this concentrate sample tested?
As I understand it, this was in March 30th, 2021, when it was received at the lab.
Okay, so the date received is March 30th, 2021. What does that indicate? Does that indicate the date that the sample was received?
That is what is stated. I assume that it to be the fact, but I don't know for sure.
And date out of lab, what's that?
It is possible that that's when the lab analyzed it and produced the report, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Based on this, it appears that the sample was tested and out of the lab in October of 2021. Is that right?
That is what I see, yes.
Okay. If we can go to the next FDA test. Again, these are the other two samples of E2 concentrate tested, and they have concentrations of 1.44 milligrams per milliliter and 1.75 milligrams per liter. This is Exhibit 5. What's the date of this test report?
This is dated October 20th, 2021.
So these test reports and testing was done many months after the real water produced these items the year before. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, but I don't know exactly how that duration.
Have you reviewed any testing of any samples of the E2 concentrate that did not contain hydrazine in it?
No, in my review of the FDA results, they analyzed 3 concentrate samples, and those are the 3 numbers that we have shown so far: 1.33, 1.44, and 1.75.
Okay. So that brings us to question number 2. Do you have an opinion regarding whether the hydrazine measured by the FDA in the 3 samples we just looked at would have likely been higher at the time they were originally produced?
Yes, I do. Hydrazine is an unstable chemical, so it degrades over time. So you let a sample sit, let a water sit, let a sample of hydrazine sit on a table or in a closet, the concentration of hydrazine goes down over time. And so for it to have been measured at those levels several months or more after the production of that water tells me that at the time of production, it would have had to be significantly higher than what the FDA measured.
Is it possible to quantify the rate of hydrazine degradation?
Hydrazine chemistry is complex, and a lot of things factor into what causes it to degrade. It is not possible for me to tell, okay, it would have been 2 times or 3 times. It could have been much higher than that, but there is not a way for me to predict what that degradation was to be able to predict how much it was at the time of production.
Do you believe that it could have been as much as 10 times higher?
That is very possible, yes.
Let's look at question 3. Do you have an opinion regarding whether testing the finished product water years after production would be a reliable measure of the hydrazine levels at the time the water was produced?
No, I would not have that confidence because like I mentioned, hydrazine degrades over time. So the longer you let it sit, the more it's going to degrade and dissipate. So it would not be surprising if you cannot measure it in the water after 2 years or 3 years of it being sitting idle.
When you were asked these questions originally and you gave your answers, your opinion on question 3 was produced on March 24th of this year, correct?
Correct.
After you gave your opinion, did you review the urethane hydrazine testing performed on the 7 retail water bottles?
Yes, I did.
The urethane testing has been admitted as Exhibit 7, and it shows hydrazine above the reporting limits in 5 of the 7 bottles, and evidence of hydrazine in the other 2, although not quantifiable at the reporting limit. Is that consistent with your review of the urethane testing?
That is, yes, consistent with that review.
So we have up on the screen a slide from the urethane testing. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at here?
Yes. So this is a sample that was collected from a water bottle that had been sitting idle. And the water was collected on March 1st, 2021, and then it was sent to the lab and received at the lab on March 8th, 2023. So this is 2 years after that bottle was produced. And what we're looking at is the result of the analysis of hydrazine in that bottle 2 years after it was produced.
And what is the result?
Well, this concentration, this water had 300 micrograms per liter of hydrazine. And this is a concentration unit that labs use, but that's what that concentration is.
Does the fact that they detected hydrazine in retail water more than 2 years after the sample was produced surprise you?
It just surprises me a lot. I would not have expected hydrazine in this water to last this long at all. It was shocking to me.
And the fact that there was hydrazine still in this water at this concentration more than 2 years after the water bottle was produced, does that indicate anything to you?
Well, it tells me that it would have been much higher when that water was produced off the line 2 years earlier because of the known degradation of hydrazine. For this much to be remaining in it, it would have started with a lot more.
And when we looked at the FDA concentrate results, you said that those concentrations of hydrazine could have been as much as 10 times higher than what was detected at the time by the FDA, correct?
Correct.
That 10 times doesn't apply to this sample more than 2 years later, would it?
Well, it would be even more than that because
Yes.
it is a much longer time that it was sitting.
On the sample page, it says hydrazine-DL. What does DL mean?
That's a code that a lab puts on a sample. So a lab would have an instrument set up to analyze from 1 to 100 because they expect the samples to come in that range. They got a sample that was outside the maximum range of the instrument setting. So what they do is dilute the sample, and that's what this DL is, dilution. So they dilute the sample, cut it down so that they can measure it to be within the range, so they can then tell you what the concentration is.
So the concentration of hydrazine in the retail bottle was so high it exceeded the instrument setting. Is that right?
it was higher than the instrument setting for them to have to do this process, yes,
So they had to dilute it down in order to be able to actually measure it?
correct.
Let's summarize the answers to your 3 questions.
So,
Does this,
yeah,
please go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
no problem. For the 3 questions that I was asked, how could hydrazine have been formed? In my opinion, it is that electrolysis process, that double electrolysis process that produced that hydrazine. There's no other plausible scientific explanation that I can see in what this process training includes.
What about question 2?
Certainly knowing the degradation of hydrazine over time, that concentrate sample that was measured by the FDA represents the minimum that would be in that concentrate, in the sense that it would have been significantly higher when that concentrate was produced. Could be as much as 10 more times higher or more, I just don't know.
And how about question 3?
Well, I mean, until I saw the Eurofin lab results, I would not have expected to see anything in the product water after this long of a time, because of my knowledge of how much it degrades over time. So, in my opinion, that would have been an unreliable indicator of whether there was hydrazine in the water at the time of production at all, because of this degradation. But certainly, the follow-up testing has proven me to be a little over optimistic about how much degradation happened in these bottles. There's still quite a bit left.
Thank you, Dr. Najm. And there's one more area that I'd like to cover with you. If hydrazine is present in drinking water at a high enough concentration, can you see it?
So hydrazine is described.
Speculation beyond the scope.
I'm an expert in hydrazine chemistry.
Still beyond the scope.
Plus we have a question we can take. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a number of questions here. I'm going to go through counsel very quickly. I think a couple of the members of the trial team, I don't know how you feel about it, but they need a quick restroom break. You need that? And what we're going to do is, yes, I see a hand door. So it's great timing. And so what we're going to do is this. We're not taking a break, per se break. We're just going to go to the men's room and ladies' room. And then when you're done, and everyone has done what they need to do, then we'll come right back. You understand? And so we're going right out there. Back here. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to any report or commentary on the trial. Any persons connected with this case or by any meeting of information, including without limitation, newspaper, television, radio, social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Tumblr, you know what to do. And last but not least, do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with this trial until the cause is finally submitted to you. Just one other additional comment. I do appreciate everyone following the rules, and understand there will be chance meetings with lawyers, encounters potentially in the elevator downstairs at some point. And I think everyone understands this one fact, that the lawyers, the witnesses, and/or members of the litigation team, they can't talk to you. And you promise me you're not going to hold that against them if they don't reply, right? Everybody understand? Okay, Mr. Marshall.
All rise to the court to adjourn. Jury is clear, please excuse me.
Yes, you can. All right, anything we need to add to our discussion we had so far? All right. Okay, we have a test, we have about, I think, 5 questions from panel members. We'll go through those very quickly. I'll read them off to you, and then we can decide what to do with them. The first one I have is from panel member number 12. Quote, what testing equipment would you use to check for hydrazine? Any objection to that?
No.
Okay, that'll be fine. Next question from juror number 4. Is it David? Is it Colton?
Yes.
And number 4 happens to be, okay, Mr. Quote, do all alkaline waters inherently run a similar risk of creating hydrogen?
That's okay.
Okay.
Anybody object?
I'm just thinking about that for 1 second now.
Think about it. It might be for personal, future use. Right.
It is hydrogen.
Yeah, this is not the water manufacturing expert, though, that's my concern.
I think he's talking about the process, if that's what it comes down to.
The process of making hydrogen, not
Yeah.
the process of making alkaline water, that's where I'm seeing the distinction.
I think
I want to think about that one for just 1 second,
Yeah.
if I may.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can probably address that issue, I guess, it would be, they follow the same processes that were used at real water. Potential.
I don't know if he knows, doesn't he? I don't know if he knows. Okay, we can write on that.
Okay, next one. And this is from Mr. Juror number 12 again. What did the solution mixture play in the possible have in the formation of hydrogen? I guess it kind of,
Could you read that again, Your Honor?
yeah, it's a little unartfully set forth, but I'll go through it again. Quote, what did the solution mixture in parentheticals play in a possible, and it says, I think have, in the formation of hydrogen?
I think that's just my, the witness could probably answer.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, probably can.
Plaintiff?
No problem.
Next one is from juror number 3. There's 2 questions. Was it just the concentrate, the 3 different samples measured and tested? What happened in the water ready for production? Was it discarded?
I don't know if he's gonna know the answer to that.
Is that 2 questions, Your Honor?
It's 1 question. Quote, was it just the concentrate, the 3 different samples measured and tested? What happened to the water ready for production? Was it discarded?
I'm gonna say that would be speculative, because he wasn't there, he doesn't know.
I think he could answer the first part. I think the second part is speculative.
Yeah, I think the second part is the problematic one.
Yeah.
Why don't we ask the first part, Your Honor, we'll find that.
Okay. We'll limit it to the first part of the question. There's a second question. Let me make sure I get this right. All right, here's your second full question. Would the solution added to the test, added to test the concentrate alter the reading, or was the solution package already recalled?
I don't understand.
Yeah, I think that implying that the conditioning solution was used as part of the testing. I think that's what she's thinking.
I don't.
Could you read it one more time, Your
I'll
Honor?
read it again, Mr. Parker.
Understand.
Quote, would the solution added to the test concentrate alter the readings, or was the solution package already recalled?
Yeah, that's a problematic one.
Yeah, I don't know that I understand it fully. Do you?
Yeah, she's asking if the testing solution was added to the concentrate, or was it recalled? And that's,
Testing solution.
your testing solution.
There's no testing solution.
So, condition fit testing solution, that's where it's all mixed up, that's the problem.
Right, the pH is what gets added.
No, she thinks the kid is added. She thinks the solution. in the
Well,
kit
this
is
gives you,
added.
it might not be a good question, but I know that.
Give you a little bit.
It does. Right.
I think that Rasmussen was gonna put it out anyway.
So what are we saying, no on this question?
Yeah, since it's saying that.
Yeah,
All right, just want to make sure. Okay. Next up would be the question, your number 8.
Let's,
oh, number 8.
Yes. Quote, reasonable degree. I'm trying to read the question. Okay, reasonable degree. She said, the more charged the water in the titanium tubes form massive hydrogen.
One more time.
Or the more charged, I think it says, she scratches out, but it says, quote, reasonable degree. The more you charge the water in the
That's actually a
titanium
good question.
tubes form massive hydrogen.
So, Your Honor, that's a bad question, in my opinion, only because, first, there's no evidence of any changes or variations in the charging. For example, there's no evidence of a higher or lower magnitude of electricity to the building. No evidence as to the actual charging unit itself. This witness certainly can answer that question. There's no evidence from anyone, I would think, that he'll answer that question.
Rob Robbins from Milwaukee, he was actually asked that question in his deposition, so I know he can answer it. So, yes, what Mr. Parker's true, that said was true, but he was asked about does the amount of hydrogen produced vary with electrical charge, amperage, voltage, how much? So, I think it's actually kind of
he was asked.
a bright question that she actually asked, and it was asked that in the deposition specifically. So
I don't know how-
I have no problem with it.
I don't know how you get around the lack of evidence, Your Honor, on variations in electrical current. That's the problem. And there's no opinions from the defense, no expert opinions being offered by the defense, that there's some relationship in terms of the amount or quantity of hydrazine in bottles or jugs based on changes in the charging practice. So without that,
What was his
you're asking
response in his
speculation.
deposition?
He says it does vary with, it's his opinion that it would vary with different application of different voltage or amperage.
But in Mr. Parker's right, there's no evidence that there was different voltage or amperage. I think the witness will explain that when he answers the question. But if there had been, he says that it would be.
He actually didn't test it. He didn't test.
He
for
didn't
voltage.
test it, that's for sure.
There's just no evidence of it, and variations of voltage, Your Honor. I mean, you're
That is
inviting
also
speculation.
Well,
I'm sorry, I
you could go to.
What you're saying is true, there's no evidence of variation in voltage, at least on the part of real water.
I just was shown a photo this morning, Your Honor, of clamps that was attached to the actual electrical device that appeared to be corroded and rusted. So there may have been different.
Here's my next question. Ultimately, at the end of the day, how's the question even going?
That's what I said the same thing, Your Honor. There is no relevance.
Because Rob Robbins from Milwaukee, I believe it might be relevant, Your Honor, that there were different conditions that could result in varying amounts of hydrazine, is what he testified to in his deposition, being produced during the hydrazine production, or where the hydrazine was being produced in that process, in those first two steps. He talked about voltage, he talked about water temperature.
Yep, temperature.
He talked about a couple different things, so that could result in varying amounts of hydrazine actually being formed, and then you have the issue of degradation too, so that could explain, the different varying amounts that ended up in customers' product.
Except there's not a single witness that the defendants have identified who can provide any of that evidence. No opinions, no reports, no testimony, they're inviting speculation on the part of the jury.
Yeah, so it was a standard procedure. I mean, it was specified that. They wanted to show that he was using the voltage lower, higher, medium, whatever. They could ask him through the definition, or some kind of foundation.
But I circle back once again, why is it relevant? And here's my question. Because for what purpose would it come in? That's what I always use from a relevancy perspective. For what purpose would it be offered? Because at the end of the day, we do know one fact, there was hydrogen in the water. Right? So for what purpose would it come in?
Well, I can think of one, Your Honor. Exhibit 1 in this case is some chart they put up there with little or no foundation to explain what appears to be an allegation they're making that somehow the ORC meter giving an inconsistent reading is the result for that chart of all the liver failures back to 2016 varying. And I would make the argument that the introduction of hydrazine in varying amounts could also cause, that would result in the customers getting different amounts of hydrazine at different times depending on the conditions that it was made under.
So he's really speculating, Your Honor. He's saying that Real Water had a policy of a couple months, they juice it at a higher level, then a lower level, then a higher level. And there's absolutely no evidence of that. There's evidence there was uniform manufacturing practice with regards to the concentrate. Always done by one person, always done the same way. That's the evidence.
Mr. Odou?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Kemp. This is just too speculative.
Okay, that's what I thought you were gonna say. I just wanted to make sure, because it's my understanding, number one, there's no evidence of a change in the production processes vis-a-vis voltage, right?
That's correct.
Or amperage, or whatever electrical.
There's no evidence on their part, it's their burden. If voltage varies the amount of hydrogen being produced, then maybe it's their burden to have shown that voltage was uniform throughout.
Well, actually.
He just turned it on his head. He just turned 16.1 2B on his head.
But ultimately, whatever process they were utilizing resulted in hydrogen in the water, right?
That's right.
And there's no evidence of changes in utilization of electrical current to the process, right?
That's correct, John.
Right, Mr. Odou?
That's right.
Okay.
It's just speculation that there could be some variation based on, a photo of the charger.
Okay. And for the record, to make sure there's no allegation that the changes or variations in electrical current applied to the processes resulted in a hydrazine vis-a-vis an effective product pursuant to 402A and the restatement of torts. Right?
That's true.
I'm just making it clear for the record. Okay. I'll sustain the objection. Mr. Odou and plaintiffs on this issue because it would result in speculation. Oh, we got one more. I don't know if I asked this one or not. Did we talk about this one? I want to make sure this was Mr. Codem. I think we did. Do all alkaline waters inherently run a similar risk of creating hydrogen?
Yes, we are.
We're waiting for Mr. Odou to say whether or not he agrees or disagrees.
The concern that we have is whether this witness is a foundation to answer that question. I'm concerned that if he has knowledge of other manufacturing processes for alkaline water, it's fine. I just don't want the witness to feel pressured to guess.
I think what he's gonna say, Your Honor, is that unless they use titanium tubes, it's gonna happen again.
Yeah.
Witness later today is gonna say.
That's fine. That's what his answer is going to be, honestly, because it's not
It
disputed.
wouldn't happen elsewhere. Right.
What I'll do, we'll find out. No new opinions, but this is a jury question. It said, do all alkaline waters inherently run a similar risk of hydrogen? I guess it comes down to if they follow the same manufacturing processes. Okay?
Or if he says, it's the titanium tubes that caused it, I don't know what other people do to make alkaline water. As long as, it's consistent with the evidence, I don't have a problem. I just know what the answer is going to
I
be.
think that's what the answer is gonna be, to check that with tubes to make the hydrogen.
Okay, I'll put
if you want to be safe, Your Honor, you always want to have the question asked outside the jury and then you play it back.
Yeah.
Or counsel can ask and say, if that's what you're gonna say, I don't have a problem with it if he's sitting there.
Is it right?
Thanks back there.
That's the easiest, safest way to do it.
Yeah,
Bring
I
one
just
up.
don't wanna get into speculation.
I understand.
I think we do that out of the presence of the
We
jury.
can do it right now. So come on up, sir. We'll get you back in the box. And sir, you understand you're still under oath?
I do, Your Honor.
And this is a proposed anticipated question from juror number 4, David, is it Coten? Coten, okay, quote, "Do all alkaline waters inherently run a similar risk of creating hydrazine?" Question mark, close quote.
The short answer is no, because different waters are produced in different ways, and the conditions of production will need to be ones that favor the formation of hydrazine.
No objection.
No.
Okay.
Now, the question is, will I remember the answer?
All right, so we've had a chance to review all questions. I'll just go through them one more time. Make sure I don't make a mistake. What testing equipment would you use to check for hydrazine? That's fine, right?
It's fine, I don't think he was ever asked that question during deposition, right? It does not appear in his report. So I don't have a problem with the question. I would like to know now what his answer is going to be, because it is not something in his report, and it's not something that he was asked. So it would be speculative, since it's not covered in his report, it's not one of his opinions. But I don't have a problem with the question, as long as I know what the answer is.
But, I'm sorry, I missed the,
So in his report, he doesn't talk about other testing equipment. He doesn't. He talks about the pH that was there, he talks about an ORP meter, and he talks about a TDS.
He makes it.
Okay? He's asking, what test equipment I use to detect hydrazine? Okay? And so that is not a question that is in his report. What piece of equipment would I use? That's not in his report, Eric.
I thought that question was referring to the test that Eurostings ran.
I mean, at the end
Or
of the day,
FDA.
though, well, here's what I find about it. I understand this, we object, but it is more foundational. What testing equipment,
Yeah, I
how
don't-
would you determine a fractured ankle? An
Right.
X-ray
Right.
machine.
Right, that's why I don't have a problem with the question, but I'd like to know the answer. Because if he says something that's just not right, which I doubt he will.
With the one that you know.
I mean, it's a foundational question.
It is.
It really is. This
Once
is-
you've approved the question, I don't see that his answering is a prerequisite. The one we haven't come to answer, the one because we didn't know if he had the ability to answer it.
Right, I was listening to the court when we were up there, and he says if it's not in his report, and it's not an extension in his deposition, it's not there.
I think this one is an extension of his deposition because this is an expert on hydrazine, so presumably he knows how to test for it, I hope.
I don't disagree with that, I'm just making sure that.
I'm quite sure he knows
He's
that.
not gonna say the ORP meter test for hydrogen. Don't you worry about it.
We got that covered.
You're fine now.
So long as you're not gonna do that, then come out of the
I
mouth.
get your objection. I do.
Yes.
I understand. Makes sense. I'll permit it. You know, you're not gonna say the orc meter, are you? You feel better?
100% better now.
Okay, all right. And we have a clear record on that. I'll permit that. And I'm just gonna go through them again, and that's why we're doing this now. Another one, this is Mr. quote, "What did the solution mixture play in the possible formation of hydrazine?"
I think that's the one they had objected to.
Okay, what did it? Well, he's gonna testify as to the mixture, how it was, I mean, this appears to me to be, I think he's already testified to this.
No, this is still not the kit.
No,
This is the solution.
this is the solution.
The solution they're talking about, unless I'm wrong,
Cleaning solutions would be.
is the kit, which has nothing to do with the mixture of.
I'm not sure he's evaluating the kid.
No, he's not talking about the kid, he hasn't even testified on the kid.
Well, I think that's
The
the
condition
question,
kit.
because they brought up a lot of kit in the opening, and I think she's confused that MA 9025.
Well, maybe we
dumped
need
into the
to
mix.
alleviate the confusion. That's why jurors ask
They
questions.
want
I'm
to
gonna
do
permit this.
that, and if you can, if you can clarify that, then that would be great, so.
And I speak, Your Honor?
Okay, well, wait, is there any objection to the expert?
We have no position on behalf of the law on that.
On the,
He just said he wanted to make a comment, sir, on his question.
May I speak? Yes.
oh, yes, no objection.
No,
I apologize.
sir.
Which is, what the jurors refer to as solution is that, I don't know what solution. Oh, that needs clarification before I answer.
I'll put this no. And that's it. That's a no. That's why I'm glad I'm going through them one more time. Okay, and this is, Ms. number 3. We're only gonna ask the first part of her question. Everything else we've agreed to, we won't ask. Was it just to concentrate the 3 different samples measured and tested? Right? Everyone okay with that?
We were trying to get something else worked out, Your Honor, I apologize.
Okay, this real simple, and then go back to Mr. Park and work it out. This one I know the answer to, but I just want to make sure the record's clear. Was it just to concentrate the 3 different samples measured and tested?
By the FDA, that's 3, it's 3.
I get that, I get that. And I'm gonna ask that question.
Right.
The others, we've agreed to the extensions of that, we're not gonna be asked. Just wanna make sure I get this right. This was for number 8. Reasonable degree, the more charge the water in the titanium tubes form massive hydrogen. That was out, right?
That was accurate.
Just want to make sure. Be clear. And we just have one more. I'm going to permit this. Do all alkaline waters inherently run a similar risk of creating hydrogen? And we talked about that. We asked you.
We did.
All right.
Can we
Have
get
you,
like
can you work out what you need?
Yes, we're just trying to figure out how long we're gonna take across, because we've got coming up on lunch and that sort of things.
We'll take as much time as we need.
All right, I'm gonna, can
Right.
can we take 2 minutes to just ourselves, use the bathroom?
How quick?
Very, very quickly.
All right, she just has one question, and we'll go.
Exhibits 440 and 389 were brought up. I don't have those as admitted.
Work it out. Council, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll get ready to start that.
440 and
389.